Hello my dear audience, after many years, I'm today finally going to take a look at a laptop again and will give you my opinions on it, basically whether or not the following model is worth it. The interesting thing being that only a small percentage of you will actually know about the brand. As you may know, I love testing products by lesser known brands. The laptop in question today goes by the name of LincPlus P5, nice and simple, easy to remember. This P5 model I have lying on my table here today comes equipped with an Intel Core i3 processor of the 10th generation, features a 14-inch Full HD display, 8GB of RAM, along with a super fast 256GB NVMe SSD. More on the specifications a bit later into the video. What probably matters most when it comes to laptop purchases is the price and what you actually plan on using the device for, because as you surely know, not each and every laptop out there is equally as good for us individual users. The model LincPlus P5 currently goes for €479 on the German Amazon website, which would translate to about $500 to $540. So far, I haven't found a US deal on this specific laptop yet. But anyway, that's pretty much the sweet spot in terms of pricing. Many go exactly for that kind of price point when shopping for a simple office device. And let me tell you, whenever I want a new laptop, I usually spend between $500 and $700 on one. Alright, let's get into it. Now, we don't get a whole lot included here, but I can't really complain, since besides the laptop itself, we get the USB Type-C cable, 65-watt Type-C charger along with a quick start guide. Basically all we need. I've already spent like 5 minutes with this thing behind the scenes and went through the first Windows setup steps, because yes, Windows already comes pre-installed on here, even though the edition we're dealing with is rather lackluster. And I'm talking of none other than the Windows 10s version with partially harsh limitations. To be fair though, you can leave that S mode behind for free. The system language, the language pack is German out of the box, which makes sense since it's aimed at the German market after all. This also applies to the keyboard layout. My plan for this laptop is to get Windows 11 running on it, and that was a rather seamless, easy switch. The drivers are being taken care of by the operating system. TPM is enabled right out of the box. Also, hats off for the UEFI BIOS on here, with lots and lots of options to go through. Not a very common sight when dealing with laptops. But let's take a turn and talk about build quality and connectivity. What makes this LincPlus P5 stand out from many other competing models is the fact that the whole case is entirely out of aluminum while being quite thin, also weighing in at only 1.2 kilograms. So ideal for those of you that like carrying such a device with you. Of course, this also means they had to cut back on the screen size a bit, with quote-unquote only 14 inches. Furthermore, we don't get a numpad on the keyboard. And while we are at it, the keyboard comes with a nice white backlight, which turns itself off after a few seconds of inactivity. It turns back on immediately after pressing a key, maybe a setting I haven't quite discovered yet. Needless to say, the backlight can't be turned off entirely. Now, once you open up the laptop, the screen at the same time also acts as a stand for the device, increasing the height and giving you that right angle most of us want. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of room for tilting, so that's somewhat below average, I'd say. Between the screen and the remaining body, there are air vents, so the heat of the internal components, especially the CPU's heat, can be exhausted through those vents. And yes, this model does come with an internal fan, which turns on already at fairly mild loads. Luckily, it cannot be considered noisy or annoying. Other than that, as for connectivity, on the left side we get a USB Type-A along with a 3.5mm audio port. On the right, another USB Type-A port, but also 2 USB Type-C ports, either one of which can be used to charge the battery of the device with that included charger. Additionally, we're being greeted by a microSD card slot. So in terms of ports and connectivity, in general, not bad at all. But a lot of you are still in the dark when it comes to specs, hardware. For the screen, 14 inches 1080p Full HD, IPS panel, 60Hz. CPU, Intel i3 1005G1, part of the Ice Lake generation, 2 cores, 4 threads, 1.2 GHz base, 3.4 GHz max boost clock. Dedicated graphics we of course can't expect any here. Therefore, we are relying on the integrated Intel UHD graphics 920 DX12 capable. RAM 8GB, clocked at 2133 MHz, and single channel, very common with laptops. There's still one slot left to be populated down the line. As for the SSD, we are getting an unknown model in here, at least to me, with a capacity of 256GB PCIe 3.0 X4. Intel also brings 2.4 as well as 5 GHz Wi-Fi to the table, along with Bluetooth 5.1. So all in all, definitely usable modern hardware. While in terms of performance, it doesn't really impress that much, it's good enough for a pleasantly smooth user experience. I've also taken the liberty to run a Cinebench R23 multi-core test and achieved about 2,400 points, while a single core got me to almost 900. Quite speedy, at least when compared against a conventional SATA SSD, is that built-in NVMe SSD in here. I achieved speeds of about 2,500 MB per second read and 1,100 MB per second write. A bit later into the video, I'll also show you the gaming potential of this machine. First, I'd like to discuss a few other aspects. The keyboard, while it's nothing special, the typing feel is surprisingly satisfactory. The touchpad also manages to convince me, alone due to the fact of offering a fairly large surface to work with, and due to its good accuracy. Maybe. Why maybe, you ask? Well, because the screen's input lag appears to be quite high, meaning inputs by the touchpad or mouse, for instance, doesn't feel very responsive, if we want to put it that way. But other than that, it's a beautiful IPS display with strong viewing angles and a respectable brightness level. That is minus those few grainy pixels with certain color tones, mainly blue and orange. But you have to look closely to discover that, so it's probably just nitpicking. Speakers we get on the left and right side of the keyboard. They offer decent volume, but richness in sound, not a chance. Bass is pretty much non-existent on here. Voices, for instance, for voice chats and calls can be heard well though. When it comes to one's own voice and how it's perceived by others, however, it's a different story with that built-in microphone. This, my friends, is how the built-in microphone sounds like. To be honest, a catastrophic result, actually close to not usable at all. Nearly as bad that Potato, or rather webcam, performs. While this one's certainly usable, it's far from being a good experience with a mere resolution of 640 by 480. Managing temperatures with the CPU being pinned at full load, the LincPlus P5 does a pretty good job with. At an ambient temperature of 21 degrees Celsius, the CPU is sitting at around 85 to 86, 90 degrees at max, and the CPU clocks at 3.3 GHz. I consider this to be a good result. Of course, not all that hard to achieve with a CPU TDP of only 15 watts. Now, how are things looking with the battery life? Built-in is a 3-cell lithium-ion battery with a capacity of 49 watt-hours. This should offer us up to 12 hours of operation, according to LincPlus. As always, we can't fully rely on these numbers, since it always comes down to one's usage and how heavily you use the device. I haven't paid close attention to what exactly I've done with it. I did a lot of web browsing, watching YouTube videos, reading comments, and so on and so forth. I admittedly also didn't pay a whole lot of attention to how many hours I've been sitting in front of the laptop, so I can't tell for sure how long a single charge will last you. All I know is that the result in this discipline luckily turned out well, all satisfactory. I'm positive I spent between 6 and 8 hours with the P5. That also includes a few Cinebench runs, so in terms of battery life, thumbs up from me. But listen, what if you planned on gaming with the device in this price range? Well, gaming, at least as far as AAA games are concerned, more so resembles a slideshow than anything else. But that was very much expected with that set of hardware. So if gaming is a big factor, one should probably fire up older titles or less demanding ones. The slightly sluggish screen, both in terms of response time and input lag, also doesn't exactly help with bringing across the best gaming experience. That's simply something one has to accept. In this price range, rarely achievable in general, if I may say so. So what's the target group for this laptop? Very likely those that want to carry a compact and lightweight device with them that on top of that is very well made. The LincPlus P5 offers a healthy overall package when it comes to features, connectivity, and performance, but has its weak points, especially in aspects such as the microphone, speakers, and webcam. Meaning I would strongly advise against using this model for anything that requires the built-in mic, unless you go for a workaround by connecting an external microphone either by cable or via Bluetooth. For simple office tasks, Word files, and not too demanding Excel sheets, video streaming and the casual, not too demanding game here and there, definitely not a bad solution. Still, there's nothing crazy special about this device. Nonetheless, at a price of 479 euros currently, you can't do that much wrong, since competitors have its weaknesses too in the mentioned aspects. As a simple laptop, the LincPlus P5 certainly is well worth recommending. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this slightly longer video of mine. Thanks a lot for watching, and until next time.